Hey, good morning and happy Friday to everybody watching my sweet video. Wanted to do our professional development just a little bit different today. I know people are probably a little bit tired after having conferences last night, so for me to sit up and do a presentation didn't seem like the most appropriate thing this Friday morning. So have kind of two goals for the video that I put together here. The first is really to introduce you to PlayPosit. We have some teachers in the building that have used this to kind of enhance the videos that they use. We do have a building license, so if this is something that you're interested in and you think will probably or could potentially enhance what you're doing in the classroom and you haven't had any experience with this, hopefully this gives you a little bit of an idea of what it can look like and what it can do. Beth is going to have a couple of sessions this morning, one for beginners and one for more advanced people. And like anything we do, if you take a look at this and say, it's not really going to help or enhance what I'm doing in my classroom, then don't worry about it. So that's kind of the first goal here, is to kind of to introduce you to PlayPosit and what this can look like, and potentially give you some ideas of how it may enhance what you're already doing in your classroom. The second is it's hard to believe, but we are halfway through the first trimester. Today, technically, we don't have kids in the building, but it is the end of the 6 weeks, so we'll be posting grades today and by Monday at 4 o'clock. And I think sometimes when you get halfway through something, it's a really good time to do a little reflecting. I know that people have submitted and met with the people that they need to meet with for their IGDPs. And so I want to take a little bit time today to kind of talk about data a little bit, and maybe get people to kind of think about data differently. In a perfect world, we would have done this before. We kind of set some goals and things like that, but things aren't always perfect and they don't work that way. But I thought since we have a little bit of time today, this would be a good opportunity for me to try to put some things in perspective around using data, get you to think about potentially the data that you're collecting using a little bit differently, not only in your classroom, but with your collaborative group. And then also have some time to just take a little bit of an opportunity to reflect on your IGDP and really look at those student achievement goals that you set. Take a look at those goals and the data that you're going to collect around that, and your professional development goal, and look at that data. And maybe if you take this video and you look at things a little bit differently, want to reset, maybe not the goal so much, but how you're going to collect data and the data that you're going to get, that would be a good time to do that today. So I just want to take a second here to just review with you some of the pieces of data that you may already be using or at least have access to. So the first one is TIES IQ. Basically, this is the district's warehouse of all district-wide student data. So you can access this right through campus. You can see students' MCA scores, NWA MAP scores. You can go back and potentially see some reading and math assessments from an elementary school. But really, this is the place to kind of see the wide body of work for a specific student in your class from when they've entered our district till this point in time. There's a few different things that MDE has for us. Obviously, you can use the MDE school report cards, so that again we'll find MCA results, demographic information, graduation rates, things like that. There's another really cool website that the state has put together. It is the Minnesota Statewide Longitudinal Data System, SLEDS, and that can be found at sleds.mn.gov. And the really cool thing about this is it's longitudinal data on graduating classes. So you can go back and look at the graduating class of 2015. Not only see some of their test scores, but it also starts to track their persistence in colleges, 2-year, 4-year schools, which schools they're choosing to go to, how many students enroll their first year out of school, how many persist into their second, into their third, into their fourth, how many kids graduate within 4 years, how many students graduated into after 5 or 6 years. So it's really, really cool data in terms of how our students are doing once they leave the building. We do have Clarity data, which is some of those surveys that we have students, staff, and parents take, which give us some different type of indicators on how we're doing on our personalized learning. Behavior data in terms of behavior referrals and things like that. And then there's the common formative assessments that you are using currently in your classroom. So you just had a minute to either by yourself or with your collaborative group, take a little bit of time and kind of list out and talk about the current data that you collect that's going to kind of inform your practice. And now we're going to move into the kind of the next phase and get you to think a little bit deeper about that. And so as we begin to look at data a little bit differently, I want you to kind of kind of retrain the way that you think about it and think about it more about evidence. What is the evidence that I'm going to collect that is going to inform my decision making and really tell a story? Because ultimately, when you collect data, you want to be able to reflect on that data and get to really, is it doing what I want it to do? And you can do that really through a story and through that reflective process, which should come out in your IGDPs. So to really use our data well, we need to really kind of build off that culture of inquiry where we are regularly looking at relevant data. And I know that our collaborative groups have spent a great deal of time over the last 4 or 5 years to really hone in and identify those key performance indicators of deep student learning. And that's the starting point. I mean, we have to really ask ourselves, what are we after? And those learning indicators and those key performance indicators are really what we should be after in the classroom. The next thing and kind of the next level is, okay, what data is going to inform our progress towards that deep learning? Now, from a couple slides ago, you can see we have access to a lot of data. And really, at times, I think, in education, we default on just, finding things that are measurable. We can measure lots of different things, but the question is it meaningful? So we really want to make sure that the data that we're collecting, we're not collecting simply because it's measurable, but it has to be meaningful and inform our progress towards our goal and deep student learning. And so again, there's lots of different data that we can collect that wasn't on that previous page. Whether it's common assessments that you use, could be peer coaching, could be observations, could be qualitative, quantitative data. All those things are different data points that you can collect. But again, it has to be meaningful and you have to know why you are collecting that data. And without that deep understanding of why you're collecting that data, the chances are the data that you're collecting is just simply observational type data. So as we use our data and we begin to go beyond just observations of the data we collect, either for ourselves or our students are collecting, and really want to begin to use that well, we got to press for insight and meaning. And so what does that look like? And really what that looks like, it's that reflection piece, digging a little bit deeper. So whether you're collecting data on a certain common form of assessment or on different pieces that you have goals for students and things like that, but really starting to ask the questions of why did they perform at that level? What were maybe some barriers to that performance? What were some things that scaffold and help students get to that level? Were there certain groups of students that didn't perform as well? And if that's so, why didn't they? Are there certain things that I tried with different classes that I didn't do with other classes? And did that have an impact on the student achievement and their ability to meet those learning indicators at a deep level? Really pressing at what level? So not just saying that they met this benchmark or this indicator, but digging deeper and dividing those up and seeing, okay, so what parts of that indicator did they do really well at? What parts do they still need work on? And again, what are some scaffolds that I can provide and what are some reflections that the students can provide in that? We're really trying to put the data that you are collecting into context. So without that context, the data is just merely observational and just points in time. But once we start to give meaning and put context to that data, now we can really use it to inform our instruction, start to make some different choices about potentially things that we're going to do in our classroom, and really dig deeper into into what's going on and why we're getting the data that we get. The other thing that I would say too is as you begin to work on trying new instructional methods or trying different things, be careful of using old metrics. As our system changes and as we evolve and we become more proficient in personalized learning, I would say just be aware of using artifacts which are created in an old system. And so as you begin to look at your instruction and look at your goals either for yourself or for your students, you may have to find new metrics to measure that. and that's okay. And sometimes you have to do things a couple of times to figure out what exactly are those indicators and what is that evidence I want to collect that's really going to inform my data. So, again, as we begin to become better at using our data and we become better at selecting those indicators, we really want to move beyond those observations and really dig into that reflection piece. And those IGDPs are another great opportunity to take time and reflect and really get at the meaning of the data. Why is it that I'm seeing what I'm seeing? What impact did I have on those students learning as we did different things? What impact did the students have? And really put that data into context. So I'd encourage you within your collaborative group as you guys continue to work, either if you find time today, we typically give people time to work collaboratively on our staff development days. Next one won't be until December, or in your Wednesday meetings, to continue to ask yourself and reevaluate, what are we really after? And why does it matter? And I think if you start with those two things, it will give new meaning and kind of new emphasis to the work you're doing with students and in the classroom, and continue reevaluate that. What are we after? Why does it matter? And then what kind of data or what evidence is going to really help us to identify whether we're making progress or not? Sometimes some of the metrics we use don't show growth, but if we can, find different ways to show student growth, that's probably the most powerful thing, because again, that's individualized for the students. So regardless of where a student is starting, they can see that they started at point A, and through the work of the classroom and through the scaffolds and the instruction that you provide, the support that you provide, that they've moved to point B. And again, that is personal to them. And then really, how do we start to turn this over to our individual students? So again, it's one thing for us to collect data, but how do we allow students to collect data? And again, make sure that that data is meaningful to them, that it really is impactful and it is indicators of things that they want to learn. And then I just ask you to reflect on, how do you collect data and what does that look like? And again, a lot of the collaborative groups that I've worked with, I've started to ask teachers to really not just collect that quantitative data, those hard numbers, but also take time and use qualitative data. Have a weekly reflection, or if you try something new in your classroom, those reflection pieces and getting reflections from students are also powerful indicators and evidence of maybe seeing what's going on in your class and may or may not be working and how you can improve on that. And then again, some additional questions that your collaborative group can work on when you have time together. Again, reflect on that student achievement goal in your IGDP. I know those have been set, but after watching this, if you step back a little bit and say, okay, this is what I'm really after. This is what I really want to have happen with my students. These are the powerful opportunities I want to provide my students. It's okay to change that. It's the individual growth and development plan is something for you that either the FISs can support, or if you're on the evaluation process, the administrators can support. But again, we want to make sure that student goal is something that you're passionate about and that you want to work on. Then go back and reevaluate. What are those key performance indicators? What are those strong measures that are going to indicate that students are learning deeply, or students are moving in the direction that you want to do that? How will your team gather and interpret that data around those performance indicators? And then again, it always goes back to this. You have to know the why behind. So why is it that you selected that goal? Not only the student achievement goal, but also your professional development goal. And then why did you select the data or the indicators that you selected? And then ultimately, why does it matter? So if we start to gather this data and we start to look at it, what is this telling me? Why is what's happening? And it's weird to answer a question with a question, I guess, but really dig into that, and be reflective in those processes. We know that reflection can be hard. I know that we have a lot of staff members that have been working with students on their reflective practices, and a great way to kind of to help our students is to do that ourselves. So again, take these opportunities as you're looking at your data and looking at your goals to be reflective in those practices, and that'll really come out at the end of your individual growth and development plan. So I know that Mr. Pickens and myself have kind of set the bar high with our videos. Sorry, we didn't really get any songs into this one. It was hard to find a really good data song. We'll work on that for our next one. But I did find a little meme of my guy. And of course, it's Friday, so congratulations. It is the end of the first 6 weeks of the trimester. And I do want to take a second. I probably don't do this enough, but I do want to thank everybody for all the hard work that goes into what you do on a day-to-day basis, but really making our school year really successful for the first 6 weeks. Kids have been fantastic in the building. Really happy with kind of the culture that we've been able to create over the last 5 years, and that doesn't happen without the day-to-day interactions that you as a teacher have with those students. So keep working on those relationships. We know that it's hard sometimes because some of our kids make it more difficult, but those are some of the kids that we need to reach out to the most. So I'm going to end this video with a little bit of song just to kind of get people into the mood for the weekend, and a little bit of thank you. Celebrate good times, come on. Let's celebrate, come on now. Celebrate good times, come on. Let's celebrate. We're going to have a good time tonight. Let's celebrate. It's all right. We're going to have a good time tonight. Let's celebrate. It's all right, baby. We're going to have a good time tonight. Let's celebrate. It's all right. We're going to have a good time tonight. Let's celebrate. It's all right. Yahoo, Yahoo. So again, thank you for all that you do at making FHS an outstanding place. Have a great rest of your day. There's a couple of tech sessions that are available through Ms. Beckman and Ms. Tapke. Remember, we have district-wide office hours from 10 to 11:30, lunch in the building from 11:30 to 12, and the rest of the time is yours to work professionally. Peace out.